From LALATE headquarters in Santa Monica, this is Afternoons LALATE.
It's a big afternoon of Afternoons LA with incredible great news direct from Santa Monica about your fourth stimulus check update of 2021. In this recording, we go over the breaking news as a deal has been done that will signal the recon is going to the finish line. A $3.5 trillion recon passed in a subcommittee several weeks ago, and now the vote is happening. Nancy Pelosi confirms the vote for the recon is going, and Bernie Sanders says, I'm ready for the vote on the recon. What happened? Why did things change so quickly? I have the latest details. Then, programs in, programs out with a $1.575 trillion price tag. The big win overnight is a major deal for prescription medication in. This is a game changer, the best deal in nearly 20 years. We have the latest details in this recording. Then we turn over to the exciting money across the board that's coming for that student loan debt forgiveness. More money across the board for those student loan debt. And then the incredible money of this stimulus, which would come right before that, right after fourth stimulus. That fifth stimulus recon would be the COLA would be for SSI and SSDI. After that incredible COLA lift, we have those details and more. But that recon that is heading to the finish line would pay viewers upwards about $15,000 across several clusters of checks, which are remaining in mostly in true form. I have all the details of those programs surviving. It's great news, as Nancy Pelosi says the recon is going for a vote. We have a major deal of a major program going in. We have another program reportedly being added in that'll pay you across these clusters about $15,000. I have all the incredible great news as we go into a big afternoon. It's exciting as the vote is looming, and this is Afternoons LALATE. Hey, good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're having a beautiful day. And when third stimulus became a law, I said I can get you about $15,000. I've gotten viewers on average $45,000 from third stimulus. Now, fourth stimulus is ahead of the finish line and looks like it starts at about $15,000 across the board. A deal is happening, and that deal has a vote happening as well. Nancy Pelosi saying the vote on the recon could be within days. Could it be tomorrow? I have the latest details in this recording. Price tag $1.75 trillion. This is incredible great news across the board. Programs in, programs out. I was the first to tell you that prescription medication was coming back in and that it had never left. Those details and more in this recording, because guess what? That cheaper prescription medication is in there, and there could be another program being added today. Which one is it? Well, we're going to be turning over to student loan debt forgiveness, which would go by executive order, and then the incredible offer the president has made. Will the Democrats take it? Then the big details of fifth stimulus, which is coming right after that COLA raise. We have those details and more as we go into a big afternoon recording. I'm very excited for you because for the first time ever, we have a potential deal for the recon. We have a potential price tag, and we have a potential vote all in the same week. Here we go. And this is a major recording of Afternoons LALATE. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record, the most comprehensive, the most in-depth coverage of every check, every program that'll pay you money in this recon. There are a lot of them, and they'll pay you upwards of about $15,000. Like this video, and consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Casino VIP. 3 weeks ago, House Subcommittee passed a $3.5 trillion recon package. It's now been reduced to 1.75, but across that recon are three clusters of checks. And those three clusters of checks are comprised of lots of programs that when you look at them collectively, they'll pay you about $15,000. When we did third stimulus, I said I can get you about $15,000 from it. Well, stay with me, because in the second half of this video, I have people who are still getting money today, and I'm really excited for them. The average viewer of this channel has gotten $45,000 from third stimulus. Have you gotten it? Stay with me. I'm going to show you later in this video, but let's go over for stimulus. 3 classes of checks, the status of them, each of them, the price months. Let's start with the overview starting right now. Cluster number 1, hazard pay survived. This is the money for this earned income tax credit for those essential workers for 1 more year. Up to $4,000 a year elder care for you if you provide that at home, and then up to $4,000 for young children's money. Then they got college grants. The Pell's grant made tax-free with an additional $550 of hard cold cash in your hand. And then they got money for repairing the home if you're in a low-income community, totally free across the board. Then they got money for the purchase price of a new electric bike, car, or truck, all electric. This is an old provision. They extended for 10 more years. $7,500 for the purchase of a new electric vehicle, 15% for a new electric bike, all personal use. If it's business use, a little bit more. That's the first cluster check. Now, the first add-on came from Maxine Waters. She wanted to add in $25,000 for the purchase price of your first home. She didn't get that price point, but she got a lot of money for home items. Those home items, you already saw one home repair. Free checks to you to repair the homes. This is great checks across the board. But guess what? The $25,000 for that first home, not in there. But other checks for the home are, like mortgage, rent, and home repairs. Let's go to the second home repairs checks. Here we go. This is cluster number 2. Home repairs, weatherize your home, got in there. Then the household tax credit got it in there. Child care tax credit got in there. Pre-kindergarten, totally free. Checks for that got in there. Community college out. And then the money for paid leave and family leave, their reports, it's going in there. And that could be huge checks for you, up to $1,700 a week if you have to stay home. Stay with me in the second half of this video. I'll be going over those checks. But weatherize your home, they definitely got that in there. This is great news, especially, with the Halloweens. If Kristen Sinema comes knocking at your door for campaign donations, say, hey, I weatherized my home so I don't have to answer the door. The door says go away by itself. There you go. Let's go to the second add-on of checks, and these are huge. These are astronomical. It's $250 billion that was proposed from Bob Casey and Joe Biden for free home health care for my seniors and also my workers. They did not get that price point, but they got really close to the number. I'll show you the number they got. It's in the second half of this video. That home health care, free home health care for seniors and people on disability, paid to the cities and counties and states that they will then offer to you. Let's go to the third cluster checks and the status of them. And if you've been with this channel the last few days, you know what I say in and out. If you just found this channel, when I say out or in, it means at the time of this recording, the situation changing by the hour and by the minute. So here we go. Free school meals for all, checks in there. Cheaper prescription medication in there. Yes, this is brand new. Immigration reform in there at the moment, could be coming out. Farmers, I don't know. The free internet, I don't know if it's still in there. Clean energy out. Workers protection, like independent contractors, I don't know. And then the Medicare dental, vision, and hearing. Well, the hearing is in there, but the dental and vision is not. Let's go over some of those details right now. First, the expansion of Medicare across all 50 states, where all 50 states have to pay for it, even Republican states that didn't want it, they got it in there. Dropping the eligibility age of Medicare from 65 to 50, they did not get that in there. I don't hear anything about that. But then dental, vision, and hearing, Bernie's trying to make the push to get all 3 at the moment, just hearing is in there. Later, we're going to go over the immigration reform in there, but likely coming out. This is a very hot ticket issue. But now let's go to the third add-on, and that is that potential MSC IRS stimulus check. Not in the House subcommittee legislation and not yet currently in the writings of the recon, but that is something they could potentially add before a House vote or before a Senate vote. Let's go over the 2 parameters. There's 2 ways legislators, actually 3 ways legislators can add provisions during negotiations like they're doing today, after they have finished negotiations, but before they call a vote on the House side. It's unclear if we're going to vote on the recon first on the House side or the Senate side. At the moment this recording, it looks like it's back to the House. So that would go back to what AOC Omar and Jalapal and Pelosi told viewers of this channel over the last few weeks. Thousands of viewers told by those legislators they would add it after it's a House bill, but before it's a House vote. Then, if they don't take care of it on the House side, they can do it during the vote-a-rama, a 2-day event in the Senate side. Senators historically have added a lot of stuff during a vote-a-rama. For example, in the third stimulus, senators saw the need to make the forgiveness of student loan debt tax-free. Imagine the president forgave student loan debt for some individuals amounting to $40,000. They would have to pay Unless third stimulus was passed, they would have had to pay almost $20,000 of taxes to IRS. Liz Warren and Chuck Schumer, under third stimulus, during the vote-a-rama, the two-day voting event, added that provision in there to make it a tax-free event, saving people $20,000 out of their whole of cash out of their pocket. So that is the importance of the vote-a-rama. Who says he wants to put a monthly stimulus check in the vote-a-rama? Well, we have Coons, Casey, Warren, Sanders, Schumer, telling thousands of viewers over the last few weeks they want to insert it on that monthly stimulus check. Viewers have picked up the phone and advocated and said, I want it, and those legislators have said it. But what most recently has been the situation, Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer's in charge of the vote-a-rama. He determines when things are called for vote, how they're called for vote, and when they're called for vote. And he told Debbie Applegate 2 weeks ago. He told Donnie's wife last week. He told Donnie's this week. And he's told countless viewers over the last few weeks he's inserting that provision when it's on the Senate side. Now let's go over the incredible message from the top legislator. His chief of staff says to continue to advocate until we're over the finish line. And we're going to hear a little bit of different, you're going to hear an interesting message about advocacy later in this video, so stay with me. They now have been told between congressional senators' offices receive more contacts of advocacy from the LA Purple Power than the number of signatures in the American petition. Now they have a better understanding of what Americans are going through. They have the heartbreaking stories and the voice of the people in you, LALATE, as you have become too loud to be ignored. Very, very kind. Let's read the last sentence on air together. Please continue your advocacy for as the professional voice of the people you have become until this becomes law. Very, very kind. As the message says, this channel has now brought in nearly 3 million calls of advocacy, bigger than the American petition. What's important to understand is that advocacy doesn't stop here. What's important to understand is that the situation is very fluid. Money is being allocated in different sources. Programs are being removed, programs are being added. Later today, more potentially later tomorrow, the Senate parliamentarian will rule on the fate of a provision concerning immigration reform. It's in the recon, it's passed in the subcommittee and still in there. It's a very hot ticket issue. If it comes out, the program comes out, but not the money. And that frees up more money that could potentially be given to you. In the second half of this recording, we go over the breaking details of, yes, a vote is happening. Nancy Pelosi says a vote will be happening on that recon. So when, where, and how? The Price is Right, 1.75 out of the latest details. A deal's happening. The recon is agreed to in principle and form. But why did broadcast media, and still today, now realizing they misquoted Joe Manchin? They just love to misquote the guy, don't they? Programs in, programs out. Wow, the most historic program this channel's ever recorded about. That was a 20-year fight to get it done yesterday. Which program is it? I have it in the latest details in the second half of this video. Student loan debt in or out? Well, this will go by executive order. I have all those details as well. And then fifth stimulus coming right behind COLA raise. We'll be turning over to third stimulus. I have new success stories from viewers who got big money for third stimulus in just the last 7 days, as viewers have gotten upwards of $45,000 from third stimulus. If you haven't, stay with me in the second half of this video. I'll show you. I'll be back with you in 60 seconds as a big Afternoons LA continues. If you want money right now, not 5 days from now, and not 5 weeks from now, then reach out to the community page. The volunteers can help you find that money for rent and utilities. That's at news.la.com/community. The community page features a series of volunteers who are viewers like you. They can help you find rent, utilities, SNAP, food benefits, mortgage assistance, and help you with eviction moratorium questions as well. Their Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram individuals reach out to them and indicate the city and state you're from, and they'll get back to you shortly. That's a community page. Volunteers working for you, viewers helping one another. Stay with LA for more. Join LALATE Daily for the excitement of the new LALATE live daily. The excitement starts on mornings LALATE at 9 a.m. Home LALATE returns at 11 a.m. daily. And then afternoons LALATE at 1 p.m. Join us daily as the excitement continues live from Santa Monica. on LALATE. And the excitement continues direct from Santa Monica on Afternoons LA right now. A deal's happening for that recon. It is huge. And the recon will pay you upwards of about $15,000 across 3 clusters of checks. I have the latest details as a vote is happening. When would that vote be happening? I have the latest details from Nancy Pelosi across the board. Then the exciting details is that programs are in and programs are out at a price tag of $1.75. What are those programs? In the second half of this video, we have the breaking details. As programs that have been battled on for nearly 20 years got in there. And more programs could be added today. Those details coming up in the second half of this video. Then we turn to the big exciting details of student loan debt forgiveness. More debt could be forgiven. Whose debts could be forgiven? I have the latest details. And then the big COLA raise. But guess what? Fifth stimulus is right behind that as well. As we go into a big afternoon's recording, we have so much happening. I'm really excited for you. And thank you for joining me. And this is LALATE, America's only 24-hour day, 7 days a week financial news channel in America, the most comprehensive coverage of these recons, getting viewers average of $45,000 on the third stimulus. And when fourth stimulus becomes law, I'm going to show you how to get these big sums of money. So subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. Also like this video and stay with me because Evenings LA at 5 o'clock tonight is expected to be totally different than the show. It's the 5 o'clock show. You don't want to miss a single program. That program could potentially pay you thousands of dollars. All the latest details when it happens. So here we go. We're going to start with the exciting details as one of the most major programs that is game-changing, life-changing, generational, transitory was done yesterday. But I had told you since Thursday it was going to happen. That program going in is cheaper prescription medication for my seniors. Now let's back up. This is through Medicare, and Medicare, when established, could not negotiate cheaper prescription medication prices for you. And as a result, you were stuck with big medication prices. Sometimes you could not even afford it. For 20 years, the lobbyists for big pharmaceutical companies blocked any change to Medicare legislation that would allow Medicare to finally negotiate cheaper rates for those medications. Over the last few months, Kristen Sinema was the opponent to this, and Big Pharma put big campaign donations in a lot of senators' pockets. But the big change came on Wednesday. On Wednesday, we had Medicare Part B in there, the cheaper medication for Medicare Part B. But buried in the press reports, unfortunately, because it was a big win, was the president's win to get Kristen Sinema to agree to expand the cheaper medication beyond just Medicare Plan B. What was overshadowing that, of course, was the president's overseas trip. This should have been the number one story. It was a big win for the president. And the next morning when he debuted the recon, no mention of prescription medication, causing some confusion, causing Bernie Sanders to say, where is it? It was not gone. It just wasn't announced because it was not formalized. Potentially a bad optics situation. Immediately by Thursday, through all the weekend until to Monday, I told you the names of the legislators, the senators who are making the calls by the hour to get it in there. And finally, yesterday evening, the announcement that came. Expansion of Medicare cheaper prescription medication prices across Plan B and Plan D. For the first time in 20 years, here is the deal. And this is transitory. This is game-changing. So here we go. For the first time ever, as Ron Wyden says, Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat, for the first time ever, government will no longer have its hands tied behind its back and be told what to pay. This is real signs of progress. 30 prescription medication drugs can be now negotiated with the pharmaceutical companies through 2028. That companies can no longer raise prices beyond the 2021 inflationary rate, and that Medicare D and B will be open to negotiation with pharmaceutical companies for the first time since Medicare was created. A battle that has brewed on for 20 years. This is absolutely enormous, folks. It's a win for Medicare, but it's a bigger win for consumers, says Ron Wyden. For example, under Plan D, insulin will now be limited to $35 a cap for insulin. And then negotiations bring massive reductions for cancer and arthritis prescription medication, especially for my seniors. While this was not as broad as they wanted it to go, it's a great, massive first step, and they can revise it over the next few years. Center Majority Leader said, "We heard from people across the country who had serious illness and cannot afford their medicine. Today, we have a massive step forward in helping to alleviate the problem. It's not everything we wanted, but it's a huge step forward." You absolutely should be ecstatic about this. Chris and Sinema praised the event. Bernie Sanders says, "Does not go as far as it needs to go." Scott Peters says, "It's not 100% perfect, but it's really good for seniors." And then Jan Skalowski says, "You can't imagine how many lobbyists they had there for pharma. It was 15 of them." Ron Wyden said that this is a major achievement and that seniors will no longer be spending money out of their pockets on medicine like they had to before. Tom Carpenter said it's good for everyone because it does not include all medication. It just includes enough to get it done. This is a major win across the board. What's next is the next win. What's the next item on the horizon? The next item on the horizon is potentially the big item coming up next, which would be the program of dealing with the price tag of 1.75. Here's what's very strange. Let's deal with this very quickly before I go over the programs in and programs out. The Joe Manchin interview on Monday is still being misquoted by broadcast media. How dare them? He did not say he's against the recon. He said he's against game playing. And overnight, I reread really new interviews with Joe Manchin explaining what he's saying. Guess what? It's 100% what I was saying before he said it. What's at issue? He saw that somewhere in the White House documents, they were trying to say, okay, we'll just run these programs for 1 year, but they can just sort of renew indefinitely. I told you it wouldn't be 1.75, it would potentially be 10 trillion. There's new indications now that wouldn't be 10 trillion, it will be 200, 300 trillion dollars. Yes, if these programs ran 10, 20 years, this is what Joe Manchin is worried. He's happy with 1-2 year programs that brings it in at 1.75. He's not open to this language, and that is why we now see that that is what somewhere in the White House they were trying to use language to suggest the door remained open and that they could continue to renew these programs indefinitely. So what are the next items that are likely to get added to this recon? And now that they have that deal on the prescription medication. So the next one that's likely to happen is the SALT. SALT is very good. SALT is the cap on state and local tax deduction. And this is coming from Gothenheimer, Democrat, moderate, House. And the SALT cap not in there, he says is going to go in there. Then paid leave. It's believed this may still get in there. Paid leave and paid medical leave. How much is this? It's a lot. It was proposed at $1,700 a week if you make $70,000 or more per year. Then split in half, $35,000 a year. Your weekly would be $800 a week checks. These are big checks. And then if let's say you make $15,000 a year, it would be about $400 a checks. How many checks are there? A lot of them. They are looking at anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks of these checks. 4 to 12 of these checks. Yes, that's a lot of money. So who's the opponent? Joe Manchin. He says we can't be spending this much money as businesses. You do, Joe. Here's where he's wrong, is that every modern first world country has it, and their businesses have it. So we're not competitive if we're doing less than them. And Gillibrand and Murray says it's downright shameful if we don't have this provision, and they think they're going to get it in there. I'll be staying on top of the situation across the board. Well, is the recon being modified at the 11th hour? And is it being modified before House bill, after House bill? I'm going to have more of those details for the first time ever in this recording. One viewer dropped a really great comment yesterday in the live chat. He was not being facetious. He was being straight to the point. He said, this is very strange. They're modifying stuff, but they're still calling for a vote. And they're still changing things, and it's not really finished. I've never seen such free-for-all. It's very much free-for-all. And guess what I'm not even covering? I'm not even covering the back end, the pay-fors. They're changing the pay-fors. People are asking whatever happened to the corporate taxes. It's not in there. So they're changing the back end even by the hour. Why is this going on? Here's something you're hearing for the first time in this recording, and I have it later in a quote from Bernie. He basically has a great point, and I think this is maybe where the progressives are going. If people are opposed to the recon, show their cards in front of the American people. He's basically saying, you know what, if this person wants to oppose the recon, have you raise your hand and vote no so everyone sees it across the board. But if you really don't want to vote no, then just come forward. Who's he referring to? You know who he's referring to. There's a series of legislators who have often said, I'm going to vote against unless. So Bernie's basically calling their bluff, ironically, because he's the guy who often folded his lawn chair in 2020. What is he referring to? Here's examples. Number one, Gothenheimer, the Goth gang, the the House Democrat, moderate. He said his group will vote against the recon on the House side if it doesn't have salt in there. Okay. So basically, Bernie's basically saying, call the vote. I want to see you call a vote, and I want to see you vote against it because I don't believe you. I think you're bluffing. That's the first situation. Then we get to the immigration reform. This goes both sides of the table. Why? Because there's reportedly more people against its inclusion than people in favor of its inclusion among Democrats. So he's basically saying, show your cards. I need to see you vote. I can't keep on guessing who you are. Sometimes you can do these voting tallies and sometimes you can't. And then the paid leave. There's some people that say, I will vote against it unless paid leave is in there. So it goes also the way to Bernie's direction. How about things that are left out among progressives? Will you be voting against it if provisions are out of there? Bernie was asked about that last week. He says, will you oppose the recon if these provisions are not in there? He says, I can't answer that. Well, he would have to answer it if the vote is called. So it sort of goes both ways, and I like his approach. So I want to explain that to viewers. Why are they calling a vote if there's still a very fluid situation, adding things in and taking things out? It's the best bill since the 1960s, is Bernie, but it has major gaps. There's no language dealing in there with certain provisions. And are we going to be adding new provisions, Senator Sanders? I will be. Paid medical leave need to be in there. Dental, vision, and hearing, those provisions need to be in there. And we have that confirmation. So where is Bernie and these legislators looking to add things in there? Let me make this clear, because this is getting very, as one person said, dicey last night. They're potentially adding stuff in there on the Senate side that's not on the House side. They're potentially adding on the House side. Currently, the status is the following. The House markup of the legislation is in the subcommittee of the House called the House Rules Committee. Nancy Pelosi put there Thursday. She has called for it to come out of the House Rules Committee and call it for a vote. Nancy Pelosi usually calls things for a vote on Thursday evenings. Historically, she's done that. She did that in September. She did it in October. She's done that last year. She likes Thursdays for a lot of inside reasons. A lot of people say she flies out of D.C. on Friday and comes home to California and then returns Sunday night. But she likes to call things for a vote late Thursday. There was a series of articles before Halloween, so they're now over a week old, where she says she was going to call the vote on the roads and bridges tomorrow, Thursday night. Those articles are not really updated. The latest quote from Pelosi and Jalapal is that progressives and moderate House Democrats want the vote on both of them at the same time on by the end of this week. Can they get them both done by the end of this week? Maybe. But remember, if they do get it voted, and this is what I'm making very clear because I know how elaborate it looks at the moment. If they do call for a vote on the House side by the end of this week, the recon and the roads and bridges, or just the recon for purposes of our discussion, it's not going to be finished. And I know that sounds very, very strange. Why call a vote on the House side if it's not finished? Because at this point, I think a lot of people are saying, if it's not finished and you need something in there, I need you to raise your hand and say, no, I'm voting against it because it's missing. Or call it for a vote and then introduce an amendment. Here's an example, House side. Call for a vote, and AOC looks on it and says, you don't have a stimulus check in there, IRS stimulus check. I vote no. Gothenheimer looks at it on the House side, say it doesn't have SALT caps removed in there. I'm going to vote no. Or it has immigration reform in there. There's enough House members are against the immigration reform. I'm voting no. So that is how the look could occur if it happened later this week. I want to make that clear to you because it's not particularly clear because it is so absolutely, I don't want to say messy, but it is so convoluted at the moment. So then what would happen if it passes the House, which we presume it would, but it may not, because remember, any of this caucuses, if it's more than 6 or 7 people, and the Democrats that say no, the recon doesn't pass, then it would go over to the Senate, and that is where the senators would make changes. So let's assume it's not finished. Let's assume it's not finished, the recon. It goes for a House vote, it passes the House, and then it goes over to the Senate. That is why that Senate vote-a-rama, those 2 days, will be literally, the biggest work for ever. And I want to add something I haven't said in a long time. There's always the potential they could send it back to a Senate subcommittee. They traditionally don't send things to a Senate subcommittee when you control both the House and Senate. But Chuck Schumer could say, hey, you know what? We have a lot of stuff on senators who want to make changes. I'm not going to leave this for a vote-a-rama. We got paid leave. We have stimulus checks. We have a lot of provisions. Maybe we'll send it back to a Senate subcommittee. And that is why it's likely that you're going to see massive changes on the Senate side. Ron Wyden, in fact, says it. The deal's not done until the Senate acts. And then Chris Coons says that you will see changes, potentially dozens. And Jolopal says her phone is ringing off the hook with senators negotiating. So says AOC. And then Chuck Schumer, of course, has to deal with the Senate parliamentarian. That's the Senate side. And the Senate parliamentarian takes things out. Then he has to reallocate that money. And then we have Murphy, who's a senator from Connecticut, says changes are happening. So that is how I'm able to explain a little bit better to you how these changes happen. So let's go to the vote. Let's go to the programs in and programs out. And I know that there's sort of there's sort of a mixed mindset. You want the vote to happen because it makes it look like we're progressing. But at the same time, you don't want the vote to happen because you don't want the program out. It's a little bit different this time because Sanders is basically saying, call the vote on the House side, call the vote somewhere and get it moving along so that we can actually introduce our changes and that we're done. Because people are just sort of hemming and hawing in a way. So let's go over the provisions right here. And this goes back to the question of, was the White House trying to do a backdoor deal to basically say these programs would automatically renew? Let's go with the provisions. And here we go. Pre-kindergarten, 1 year, 3 to 4 year olds, free checks for you to go to pre-kindergarten, totally free. Then the child tax credit, $3,600 of checks for you, those parents, or $3,000. Here is where the numbers don't line up. The White House documentation says $150,000 annual salary or less, you would qualify for it. Broadcast media is saying that as well. That is not what I shows the negotiations. I saw they agreed to $60,000, the current threshold, and they did not agree to an offer of $110,000. The earned income tax credit, the money, the checks for my essential workers. Yes, they can do 1 more year of that. And then comes the Medicare change for home health services for seniors and people with disabilities. So here comes language, whether it's from the White House or broadcast media, it's cause of concern. It says permanently change in the legislation. Okay, permanently? You saw the graphic early in this video. I showed you the graphic from Bob Casey. It's $250 billion. No, it's going to be less. I have the number for you in a second. It's about $200 billion. So this is what Joe Manchin is saying. I'm agreeing to this at, $100, $200 billion. I'm not agreeing at this for 20, 30 years. And when you see the language permanently, guess how much this provision alone would be? It would be $1 trillion. It would be $1 trillion just this provision. You do 10, 20 years of $100 billion on home health care. It's $1 trillion. It's not 1.7, then it's 2.7 trillion. So this is why there's a big question about who was trying to do this. And you don't want to pull a fast one on Joe Manchin. Again, Joe Manchin did not say he's against the recon. He's against people trying to change 1.75 to 10 trillion. Or in this case, if you did these provisions 10, 20 years, it would be almost a $200 trillion recon. Yes, you heard me right, 200 trillion. They got housing in there, $150 billion for affordable housing, rehab, construction, home repairs. They believe they got the rent, utilities, mortgage assistance. I think they may have gotten the free internet in there. I'm not particularly clear. The earned income tax credit, we just went over. The Pell Grant, my college students, you're getting an additional $550 check in your pocket. Then free school meals. You're going to have free school meals for children while in school, and then you get checks of $65 per child per month for each family, and that's 29 million children. Lots of checks across the board. But are more checks coming? I'm going to go over the details right now. So Bernie Sanders is not sitting down as to vision or hearing. The vision and hearing could be big checks across the board for millions of Americans who are seniors on Medicare. So what is this? Well, Bernie Sanders last Thursday said he was unconscionable that they don't have cheaper medication in there. They got it in there. Well, the second comment was that we're the richest country in the globe and we do not have money for teeth, vision, and hearing. Any recon must include a Medicare to include those provisions. All right, let's go over how those provisions work and how much they are. First, they were looking at doing all three: dental, the most expensive, then hearing, then vision. So why did they not put vision in there? Vision would be like checks of $150 a year to you, vouchers of about $150 a year, prescription eye exam, $50, new glasses every year, $100. I mean, this is easy. $150. That's very, very cheap. Helps a lot of seniors who are on Medicare get prescription to get new glasses every year. Your vision is changing all the time. And that's a great check for millions and millions of seniors. It's cheap. It's as cheap as the 3 checks. So why is that not included? What is included is checks for free hearing aid under Medicare. And yeah, hearing aids are more expensive, but not as many people need hearing aids. So why spend more money on the program that's more expensive? Why spend money on the program that's more expensive that helps less people? Not particularly clear. Which brings us then to dental. Dental's expensive. They want to do it for 10 years of checks. Then they want to do it for 3 years of checks. Then they want to do direct checks to you, vouchers, actual checks. These are real checks going right to you. And those checks are going to be $850 in your wallet every year to go do for dental. I say it's not enough. It's basically half a tooth in Los Angeles on dental prices here in Los Angeles. But it was better than nothing. And then by Thursday, it was gone. So we went from 10 years to 3 years to checks to you for $850 a year, and then suddenly it's gone. Not particularly clear why this stimulus check was removed and that the hearing was included. Not particularly clear why vouchers for vision of at least $150 a year, those checks have been removed as well. But the situation is not over. And if there was anything that made sense, it's the vision going in here. Vision is just simply a simple situation across the board. We now know the opponent on this one for the first time is Joe Manchin. He says Medicare is running out of money. Why are we spending more money on it? I don't think that. I don't think I see eye to eye with him because I wear glasses. There we go. Let's go to the other provisions across the board, which are very, very fascinating. Programs in, programs out. You're going to see where my notes don't line up with broadcast media. Here we go. It's whether they don't line up with broadcast media or whether they don't line up with the White House. Well, I saw and I heard and I recorded that the deal made about the CTC was 1 year, $60,000, current threshold. I did not see anything. I saw an offer of 110. But I did not see 150. Again, these would be checks to you, $300 a month, or $3,000 or $350 a month, depending on the age of the child. Community college out. Pell's Grant, the $550 checks to college students. Then we just went over the hearing checks in there directly to you, but not the vision hearing. Let's go to the paid leave. Paid leave, I think it's going to get in there. They want to do 12 weeks of checks that would be paid from the federal government to the employer and then to you. And guess, yeah, that's about $1,700 if you make a low income / middle class salary per year. They wanted for 12 weeks, everyone, including self-employed and gig workers, decade, that'd be $500 billion because it was a decade. But they reduced it to 4 weeks for only low income and employees, and that's only $400 billion. Excuse me, that's only $100 billion a year. For example, low income is approximately, it could be $400, $600 checks per week. 4 weeks, that's $1,600 of checks to you. And that only costs $100 billion. So I think they can still get it in there. They got in childcare. They got in health insurance, less weeks. They got a housing aid in there, $175 billion. You're going to see third stimulus in just a second in this video. Third stimulus paid viewers from rent, utilities, mortgage assistance on this channel upwards of an average of $45,000, but many viewers got $100,000. That's when third stimulus recon was just only $47 billion. Imagine this one is going to be $175 billion. It's just astronomical. It's 400% bigger. In fact, they didn't use the $47 billion until just a week ago when Treasury sent out the last $13 billion of it. And then the in-home healthcare, you saw the details of that, $100 to $200 billion. Wow, we got a lot of those recorded. I told you, let's go to student loan debt. Here we go. Student loan debt, more debt could be forgiven. The president has forgave 3 rounds, and a fourth is being offered. The fourth would be $10,000 for all students. Democrats haven't taken it. It would go by executive order. They should take it and leave open the door to do more with the president next year. It's $10,000. Why not take it? I don't understand the notion not to take it. The president forgave student loan debts for individuals who became disabled after graduation. Then the president forgave student loan debts for people who went into the nonprofit sector after graduation. And finally, the president forgave student loan debts for people who went to work in the public sector for 10 years after graduation. COLA raises, get ready for COLA raise, 5.9%. Have you gotten that letter? That letter's coming from Social Security Administration saying your benefits are going up next year, 5.9% if you're on SSI, SSDI, Social Security Railroad benefits. But don't stop there because fifth stimulus is right behind it. And legislators are already saying, get ready for fifth stimulus. They want that teed up for next year. And the message comes from a top legislator who says, call this for a vote right before the midterm elections. After the events of last night, you want something like this if you're a Democrat. Force the Republicans to vote against it. And I don't see the downside of it. So how would fifth stimulus work if you're on benefits? First, they'd raise your benefits up another time. This is a one-time lift after the COLA raise. SSI, SSDI, Social Security Railroad benefits. Then they apply a new benchmark. The new benchmark is inflation. And then they remove the asset cap, remove the income cap, and remove the marriage penalty. 3 lifts, 1 year, and inflation is likely to be 3% next year. So yeah, you get 5.9% lift, then a one-time lift, and then a 3% potential lift after that. That is a big, big series of lifts. Finally, third stimulus heating up, and I told you to send your incredible messages of what successes you had in the last few days, and boy, did you deliver. Here are new messages of people who are getting sums of money in just the last few days. Nicole. I love Nicole's message when we talk about third stimulus, where viewers on average have gotten $40,000. I'm going to show you how to get that money right now. Nicole got money from slightly different items that I cover on this channel, but it's all in the same sort of universe. Let's go over it. LA. My family and I had time today, actually over the last few weeks, and I wanted to share with you that there is still money for third stimulus, and boy, did we get some because of your videos. We got $1,500 from a local nonprofit, plus Christmas assistance for our children, plus $5,000 paid for medical bills created during this pandemic, plus $10,000 a SNAP for our family, plus $7,000 a state pandemic relief for rent and utilities. I love it. So she got rent, she got SNAP, she got medical bills paid, she got assistance for children, and then she got some back bills paid. I love it. It's sort of in the universe of what I cover, but she went a little bit further by using the nonprofits I always talk about. Here's Mark. Mark sends me a beautiful message. I got another round of utilities for $19,500, and I got my SNAP raised $28,000. Let's go over the details of this starting right now. As we go into a big afternoon, let's go over the rent, utilities, and food and internet mortgage assistance you can get. We start with the rent. The numbers for rent are huge. Viewers on average are getting about $30,000 now on rent. About a week ago or 2 weeks ago, we were seeing these numbers. This is where we were actually a month ago. We were at $20,000 to $27,000. Now viewers are getting $40,000 for rent. Where do you reach out to? 6 places. City Hall, City House Authority. County Hall, County House Authority. State Hall, and State House Authority. And the key words you're going to say are rent assistance because of COVID. Rent or mortgage utility assistance because of COVID. You want to read the LA newsletter and read the message from Treasury about the $13 billion going out to your city and county before you make the call, so you're informed about it. Next, the money for utilities. Viewers are now getting about $15,000 for utilities. You want to get that as well. If you have 5 utility companies, reach out to all 5. Then SNAP. SNAP is money for food. You get it from Department of Agriculture. Reach out to Department of Agriculture. The money is huge. I have viewers now getting $25,000 a year because of my recordings, like Mark's brother-in-law. You just met Mark. He now raised his SNAP to $28,000 a year because of my recordings. Can you imagine? Over the next 10 years, Mark will be getting $280,000 because I made a video to help him, to show him where that money is. You want to get combos. You want to get multiple items across the board. Here are people who got 3 items. And here's Mark. Well, this is Mark months ago. Mark is now clearly over 100,000. What you see is that people are making several phone calls. You saw from Nicole, who's brand new today. You see it from Mark. They're not making 3 phone calls. They're making 7, 8 different phone calls. And here's Lorraine. She was at 105. She's going to 120,000. You also want to rely on the nonprofits because those nonprofits are paying money across the board. Those nonprofits are United Way, Salvation Army, Community Action, Catholic Charities, and St. Vincent de Paul. How do you get all this information? Where do you find all this information? Well, Third Stimulus is back with this channel. I'm very excited to bring Third Stimulus back in the equation because guess what? If you've gotten money before from Third Stimulus, you can get a new round. If you got rent before, your name's on the graphic I just showed, you can get more rent. You can get more utilities. You can get more SNAP. Viewers are getting, some viewers on their 3rd round at this point. Some, and a very few are on 4th rounds of these items. This is what I've been covering. I've been covering it since December 2020. And yes, people have been able to get round after round after round. The great news is as soon as fourth stimulus becomes law, we're going to go from $47 billion from this to $175 billion of this, and now include money for like home repairs and a lot of other items. How do we learn all this information? By becoming a member. The link is under the video. Become a member today. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Calcino VIP. Emoji will appear behind your name, and you will get the LALATE newsletter, which comes out Monday through Friday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The most talked about newsletter on YouTube. It's written by me, sent to you, that delivers the money, the details of the money you can get from first, second, and third stimulus. It features the 5 nonprofits. It features the words to say when you reach out to the city, county, and state. It features the letter from Treasury you need to read before you call them up asking for rent. It features what's previewed for 4 stimulus, because as soon as it becomes law, I'm going to show you how to get the money. 4 stimulus at the moment is about $15,000 for you. And once it becomes law, we're going to go through all that money as well. Coming up next is Evenings LA, which is at 5 o'clock. It's going to be a big show. I expect the news cycle to change a little bit. A lot of dramatics overnight, and those dramatics overnight are really fascinating. What were some of the dramatics overnight? Of course, those governor's races came in, and now the reaction to those governor's races and the situation across the board will be covered more tonight on Evenings LA. We'll also be covering the changing, developing details of the programs in and programs out. Finally, my commentary. My commentary tonight is looking at what happened last night and moving forward. We have a series of comments from Representative Scott Peters, which says we need to govern. It was not particularly the best face for us not to have this recon done. Representative Don Beyer, who is a Virginia Democrat, says it now says we need to get our recon going. But one of the big surprises is that Manchina may be over. What's Manchina? That's Manchin Sinema. A new report, and I believe it's accurate because I've been saying this over the last week. The alliance of Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema may be over. At this point, there appears to be no more resistance to the recon from Kristen Sinema. I had told you over the last few weeks, it's very important to sort of laser focus on what are they opposed to. And Kristen Sinema was opposed to the money for the prescription medication reform. Once Joe Biden made that phone call on Wednesday and had that big win, which really should have been front page news. I mean, it was a big win. That phone call is what's going to change your medication for the first time in 20 years. That phone call was what changed the situation for 20 years. Instead, somewhere in the messaging in the White House, the press department thought going to talk about clean energy overseas was the message you needed to do. No, that should have been the message. And guess what? That was Wednesday, the week before these elections and the governor's races. This should have been a major message. Kristen Sinema is now on board with the recon. There's no more an opposition for her to any provisions of the recon. What are the articles also saying today? What I've always said all along is that Joe Manchin sort of says things that sort of annoy him down to the very finish line, but when you call the vote, he votes in favor of it. So I think that's what Bernie Sanders is saying today. And Bernie Sanders, I promise you that quote. Let me give you that quote, which is basically say, call the vote. Bernie Sanders says, this thing is dragged on long enough, and it's got to get to the floor for a vote. If people want to vote against it, they have that right. The ultimate issue is whether Senator Manchin chooses to vote for the legislation that will expand childcare, provide universal and pre-kindergarten, build affordable housing, create millions of good-paying jobs. He's going to have to vote yes, or he's going to have to vote no. I love it. And that is sort of a new message you're seeing on this recording today, is that the legislature is saying, if you really want to vote against it, just say no. Because guess what? He never votes against it. He just says that and just, gets a book deal. But coming up later on Evenings LA, we'll have more about these details. I'll examine the details across the board. And with that, subscribe. 400,000 subscribers, a YouTube record. I wish you're part of this incredible family. Do not miss Evenings LA coming up at 5 o'clock. It's going to be a big show tonight. Like this video, 3,000 likes, and consider becoming a member. Purple Hawk, Purple Power, Calcino VIP. Stay informed, stay focused, have a beautiful evening, and stay with LA for more.